you're open, you like love sour, then you should come try my poison.
Oh, hey, you're back again. Well, I guess that makes it time for another first chapter. I'm Rodney V. Smith. The V is for violence. No, not violence. I'm talking about the instrument, so don't look at me like that. Anyway, I am a Wattpad author and and a star, and also the winner of the 2018 Watties Award for my book, The Canefield Killer. You can go and check it out on Wattpad. For Black History Month in Canada and US, Wattpad has compiled a list of books to feature and to celebrate Black stories. I'm using that list as well as some of my own selections to bring these stories into focus. What's the best way to do that, you ask? Well, by reading the first chapter of each of these books. I just bit my tongue. Anyway, so what's the best way to do that, I hear you asking? By reading the first chapter of each book, of course, just so you guys get an idea of what these books is about and let the words speak for themselves. Now, it's usually my first time reading and I'm doing it live with no edits, all mistakes, first chapters. Tonight's author is Sky Chase with her book Saving Everest, and the book is also available in hardcover through Wattpad Books as well as through Wattpad Page Stories, so you can actually get the digital book and the hardcover holding your hand. Anyway, the links are down in the description, so make sure to go check it out. Okay, are you ready for this? Let's get into it. So we should really start with the synopsis. Let's have a look at what the synopsis says. Love this cover, by the way. Okay, so Everest is the most popular boy in school. He's handsome, healthy, and captain of the football team. He has the world at his fingertips, but he's desperately unhappy. And when those feelings become too much to bear, he tries to take his own life. On the surface, Beverly's different from Everest in every possible way. She's quiet, shy, hardworking, and keeps herself on campus, focusing on her schoolwork and her part-time job, distancing herself from her less than perfect upbringing. When Everest returns to school after his attempt, he's in more pain than ever. Discarded by his friends, he draws little empathy and too much attention from those who surround him. But when Beverly and Everest meet unexpectedly in a dusty corner of the old library, they discover together just how rich life can be when given the freedom to just be yourself. Okay, let's get into the book. Can I bring that microphone down? All right. Okay, so dedication to Marley. For I wouldn't have known true friendship if it weren't for you. That's a nice one. Okay, so this book starts with a poem, and then we can go into chapter 1. So I'm going to read the poem, and I'll try to be as poetic as possible. Every time you cry, I feel it. My eyes swell with fat, salty tears, and my lungs deflate. My throat becomes dry, and my heart twists into knots. I feel every ounce of your pain, and I'm so sorry. I know what it's like to feel like you're just floating through life. That you feel like you have no purpose. That only if you died, people will understand your pain. Do you realize that there are millions of people who understand exactly how you feel? Depression houses millions of people. It's tragic because you didn't choose to believe it. It's tragic because you didn't choose to live there. It kidnapped you. Please escape. You don't have to give up. You can't see the world because depression blindfolded you, but life is truly beautiful. It's so damn beautiful, it brings tears to my eyes. I didn't see it before. You don't know how much I wish I could have. Dragged the blade upon depression's skin instead of my own. I look back and wonder why I added more pain to myself. It doesn't sound logical. I lived life with a lock on my lips. I was dying inside, but no one knew. The key sat hidden under my heart, but I was oblivious. I believed that there was no saving me. Please don't believe that, because you deserve to be happy. I looked at your smile before this mess happened, and it was golden. Chin up. You're golden. Chapter 1. Beverly. It wasn't every it wasn't every day that you heard about the most popular guy in school attempting to end his life. It was actually the last thing I expected to hear this morning. All summer, I dreamed about this day. Working three jobs, you kind of can't help but dream. Lifeguarding was where I decided I should probably try out for cheerleading. Working concessions. Let me try that again. All summer, I dreamed about this day. Working three jobs, you kind of can't help but dream. Lifeguarding was where I decided I should probably try out for cheerleading. Working concessions at Heinz Field was where I came up with the idea of trying out for the musical. Being at 21 Daisy's Cafe reminded me that I couldn't sing or dance, but in reality, all I wanted was to make my last year of high school memorable. Now, with the halls caving in from all the talk of suicide, I wished nothing more than to forget this day. The voices of the other students echoed through the halls. Although different, they were all the same. Why are we even talking about him? It's not like he actually died. Who would have known Everest would do this? He probably tried to kill himself because he realized how much of a demon Kara was. If I was dating the devil spawn, I would try to kill myself too. As I walked on the freshly polished floors of the halls and digested the poisonous conversations I passed by, I subconsciously found myself heading toward the nurse's office. Everest Finley was the king of Shady Hills Academy, so it wasn't that surprising that rumors swirled around him. Once I heard that he had an affair with a Mandarin teacher. Later I realized our school didn't even teach the language. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to believe that this was one of those ridiculous stories. But on the way to the nurse, I noticed that even the teachers were huddled outside their classrooms, glancing around every so often as they whispered in heated conversations. Taking sips from their ceramic coffee mugs and nodding their heads, they engaged in their own whisper fests. With each step grew this feeling, this terrible, dreadful monster of a feeling in the pit of my stomach. I never made it to the nurse. The school called an emergency assembly, and although there was no mention of the subject, we all knew what it was about. Mr. Sticks, our principal, who usually wore a permanent scowl on his stern face, shared a look of remorse as he broke the news. He was a large man, but on that stage he seemed really small. He ran a hand through his thinning gray hair and read off a paper he held with shaking hands. We take seriously the importance of a positive school climate and the safety and well-being of our students and staff. Mental health professionals are available to anyone who's in need. It is important to talk to someone if you feel like giving up. My head spun as the auditorium buzzed. I was stunned by how callous everyone was being. It seemed like no one even cared. These people had practically worshipped the ground Everest walked on for the past 3 years. Even from a distance, Everest seemed to be one of those people you couldn't help but like. One time when the school band didn't raise enough money for their trip to Disney World, he paid the difference. The best part was that he tried to make it anonymous. He was the quiet jock, and when he would talk, he sounded so polite, so well educated. He was ridiculously amazing on the football field and was incredibly humble and modest about it. No, it couldn't be Everest. He was perfect. Being the only black girl at a predominantly white school made me stick out like a sore thumb. I didn't really fit in anywhere, so I was always kind of thrown off to the side. Everest, though, was undeniably admired by everyone. Shockingly, it seemed as though I was the only person who felt any sympathy. Just because his body wasn't dead didn't mean his soul wasn't barely living. Sophomore year in biology, I remembered him picking up my book once. It was something that I'll never forget. He didn't even look at me as he handed it back. As I scrambled to gather my belongings, it had fallen, and as he was walking down the aisle to leave class, he bent down, picked it up, and laid it on my desk. It was such a simple thing for him to do, but I appreciated it anyway. It was just about the only interaction I'd had with Everest Finley. After that day, though, I watched him. That sounds incredibly creepy, but I did. I noticed how he tugged on his lush sandy brown hair when he was thinking. I noticed how he was always polite and respectful, even when his friends were being stuck up and rude. I noticed how his eyes weren't exactly blue or green, just the two colors were fighting for dominance, the azure in the lead most of the time. The azure in the lead most of the time. If one thing was for sure, Everest Finley had some breathtaking eyes. I couldn't help but see how he laughed a lot and had one of those smiles that was perfect, rehearsed even, like there was something deeper, something different behind it. I wondered what made him want to die. Everest had the world at his feet, so why did he want to leave it? Everest had been a topic all day. By the time lunch rolled around, it was like hearing every conversation all at once. Each table had their own set of thoughts to share. Although different, they were all the same. Everest is so selfish. Seriously, he really failed his suicide attempt. His story is now on the news. Do you know how bad this makes our school look? Imagine if he comes back. That would be so awkward. I don't care if he's crazy. I'll still blow him. Kara, his girlfriend, sat at the usual table with the popular kids. A handful of cheerleaders and in-betweeners were at her side as she cried. Nash Spies, Everest's best friend, wrapped his arm around Kara in an attempt to calm her down. Martha, her best friend, stroked her hair. How could he do this to me? I can't handle this kind of stress. The cafeteria was loud, but I was able to make out the words that passed through Kara's lips. Nash's face held no kind of emotion as he rubbed her back in a soothing manner. I entered the line and quickly paid for a bottle of water. I was desperate to get away from all the chatter from the assembly. This year, one of the things I promised myself was that I would start eating in the cafeteria, but there was no way I could do that today. No words could explain how happy I was that I didn't have to stand in the line anymore. Every conversation was about the boy who tried to kill himself. Walking past the popular table again, Kara was now laughing. Clutching my water tight, I made my way to my spot, the place where I could be alone and eat, the library. It wasn't like anyone noticed that I didn't eat lunch in the cafeteria. If someone needed a book, they'd use the new library in the west wing of the school. When it was built, it seemed as though everyone had forgotten the library in the east wing. It provided me with a space where I could be a true hermit. Sitting at one of the old oak tables, I pulled out my journal and started to draw. My pencil glided along the paper, a great sense of sorrow in the motion. Alone. But that was how I was alone. But that was how I was used to being anyway. That's it for Saving Everest. You can find out more about Sky's work on Wattpad by following the link in the description, and you can also follow them on social media as well. That's it for tonight, so thanks for joining. Don't forget to click on the like button down there and subscribe if you want to listen to me read some more of First Chapters. I'll be covering more stories from Black authors for the rest of the month, but you can also find the reading list on my profile and on Wattpad. I update 5 days a week, and there's always something new to find. Happy reading. Now go click some... Yeah.
She said, my love is like a flower, I'm trying to get you over. You like love sour,